My name is Mike Foster, the Entrepreneur's Mentor, and welcome to my interview series, A Zoom With. I regularly share my thoughts via my snippets on my YouTube channel, but this series of interviews is to introduce you to a series of trusted experts with a view of them sharing their thoughts and their tips with you. And today I'm delighted to be joined by Nick Hughes from Dynamic Coach, because I really wanted to give you a sort of sales flavour today. And Nick is a specialist in energising sales performance with innovation and disruption techniques. Welcome, Nick.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks for having me and giving us the opportunity to talk today.
Great to have you with us, and can't wait to hear your thoughts. First of all, if I would ask, could you just introduce yourself and a little bit more about your own business, if you may?
Yeah, so my name is Nick Hughes, Dynamic Coach. I'm the Managing Director, but my main role is mentor and sales coach. So I'll work with businesses, business owners, and sales teams up to sort of maybe 15, 20 million, from 500,000 upwards. And what I really focus on is working with those sales teams and those people to define what is their route to market, maybe pivot slightly, bearing in mind what we're going through in this recent pandemic, but also working with those sales teams to give them some disruption techniques and some new ways of working, which I've developed in my previous life as a sales director over the last 10 or 15 years. Predominantly we work within the local area of Oxfordshire and Surrey, but some assignments take us further afield and over to Ireland from time to time as well.
Thank you, Nick. And I guess I've just got a couple of questions for you today. Just to kick off then, what do you think is the single thing that is the threat to businesses' growth in this immediate future?
At the moment, for me, what I'm seeing and what I'm hearing an awful lot of in the marketplace is probably best to term as complacency, and people being stuck in that position of, I don't know how to move and I don't know where to move to. So at the moment, people are starting to drift back to work, and there's the challenges around how do you get people back into work. But the key challenge I see with most of my clients at the moment is that pipeline and that pipe fill of opportunities coming through. There's been a lull in activity for a number of months, but the single biggest challenge is that complacency and that sort of almost slowness to get things going again, waiting for that perfect opportunity, the perfect environment, which unfortunately I don't think is going to exist for the foreseeable future. And in the foreseeable future, probably for the remainder of this year, it's going to be very chaotic. And then both on the back end of that, we've probably got challenges with Brexit, positive and negative, coming up in the early part of next year. So probably 12 months of uncertainty, but actually the challenge for businesses not to stand still is about moving forward and making change as we go along.
Right. And how are you supporting your clients then right now with those sort of challenges?
So one of the key things I've been doing for the last 3 or 4 months, is difficult to see people obviously, but either through Zoom or telephone calls, is really challenging that mindset of what was your business plan last year or at the beginning of this year? Is it still relevant going forward? But more importantly, are they engaging with their clients to understand how their business has changed? So lots of conversations around supporting the end user or the end purchase of the product or the service, and how they are changing and how their business is changing. And from that, we're then challenging back to the business to say, okay, what business looked like in January, is that still relevant going forward? Or are we having to make some changes in how we view things and how we go to market, or whether we just focus on one particular avenue for the time being?
And you know that as a mentor, I like to challenge my customers. So I'd like to know your thoughts in terms of how you feel that your clients are responding to the challenges that you're making on those.
It's different. So I've got businesses which run from manufacturing all the way through to professional services. Professional services, really busy. There's still lots of work going on with acquisition, employment law, but then round to the accountancy firms, they're doing exceptionally well as well at the moment. So it is a bit of a mixed bag. But how are they reacting? Positive. I think they're finding some of the conversations challenging, because not only are they trying to cope and think about what's going on there and now in their business, but one of the challenges I'm asking the question is, where do you want that business to be in 3, 6, 9 and 12 months time? So there's the immediate challenge of dealing with the day-to-day, but the biggest challenge for them to get their heads around, and that's where a little bit of conversation changes slightly from my perspective, is asking them to review where they want to be in an ever-changing market and in an ever-changing situation. So in many cases, we've got 3 or 4 different prongs of attack, depending on what happens as and when things roll out from a business perspective or how things change in relation to the current pandemic we're in.
And how are you seeing those challenges then differ between perhaps the owner-operated businesses that you perhaps support, and I know the international businesses that you work with?
Yeah, so the easiest answer is owner-operators. We get a decision, and we can make a decision almost there and then. Okay, you might want to go away and think about it. The bigger businesses, there tends to be the hierarchical challenges within those conversations, and it then has to align to a broader and a wider remit of what that business is doing. But actually, the smaller businesses, the owner-operators, the sort of £500,000 to £5 million businesses employing 20, 30, 40, 50 people, we can pivot really quickly. We've made some real quick changes in some businesses, and I managed to put some things on hold and get them to really focus on where their margin is and where it's building relationship, and that opportunity to develop a further pipeline based on what their clients want and what the feedback is from them. The bigger guys, yes, it'll always be a challenge, but we're trying to align with their more corporate values, but getting the sales team to really focus on what is key to that business, what is its key message. And in the last couple of months, I'd say a lot of messages have been lost, particularly on the bigger scale, while businesses have been furloughed in staff and they've been away from the marketplace, and they've also been away from their clients. And actually, there's some guys just want to step straight back into a sales role, and we're slowing that process down a little bit and asking them to engage with their clients about what's good, what's been not so good, how do they foresee their business going forward, what are the challenges they're facing. So, okay, they're picking up information, but actually they're being seen and positioning themselves as more of a supporting role than actually selling a box or a service. And actually that'll position them better, for actually gaining more information for the business and allowing it to flex and pivot itself.
So do you see that then relating to the ability for the business to scale?
Yeah, very much so. There's a business which isn't a client of mine, but I'm very aware of in the local area, who had pretty much furloughed all those people on day one. Business was essentially closed, although they had a small online offering, and actually they really focused on one element, on one product in particular. And actually that business, through their online offering now, has the increase has been somewhere in the region of 3,000 to 4,000%. It's not a client of mine, but I use it as a model that I'm close to. I can go actually really focusing on what was important at that moment in time that the market wanted, as opposed to looking at the whole business holistically, has really driven that business forward, and to the point where they'll probably look to move the bulk of their business online now and take it away from a retail industrial unit they have, which is will be more cost effective as well. So those not clients of mine, I do like to look around the market at some really good examples. And I think that's a good one I've seen recently.
So what about sales teams then? How do you see the role of the sales teams differing moving forward?
I think it's been challenging. I think if we go back 12 months ago, I was originally looking at some research of where sales teams have come from in the previous 10 years. And I think I've made some statements that actually in the next 10 years, sales teams will be 50% smaller than what they are now. I actually think that challenge is going to be even tighter, because I think businesses will look to save money, but actually cutting the commercial elements is you're effectively cutting off the hand that feeds the face. But I think sales teams just need to change slightly. And I go back to what I said previously a moment ago. It's about having that empathy with the client base, and people, although they're happy to be sold to, they can't take all the suppliers' calls at any one time. But really, it's about positioning your business and your sales team to be the trusted advisor. And that takes some time in some elements and in some businesses. But I think the challenge for the sales team is really to get closer to the customer. There's an old term, customer intimacy, which interestingly has started to come back out in the last couple of days. A couple of reports I've read, particularly in Europe and America, that customer intimacy is now going to be the challenge going forward. And businesses and sales team that are intimate with what their customers' needs are, they will be the people that move forward. And we look at some of the businesses in the pandemic who've been out of step with the customer needs and the needs of society in general. And they've been caught out, and people will remember those sorts of things. And actually, I think your clients will remember that if you understand their business more and integrate yourself more with their business, they'll remember that in the future.
Thanks, Nick. I just want to touch on, I've heard you talk about B2C practices such as Amazon and supermarkets and the likes, and how they're influencing the B2B norms in channels that we wouldn't expect. Can you just explain that a little bit further?
Yeah, so it's if we go back sort of 7, 8, 9 years ago, the whole professional purchasing and supply chain changed, in my opinion, and it become much more competent and better skilled at its role than salespeople were. And salespeople have been left behind on that element, which I think has flowed through to a better quality of buyer or supplier, purchaser, I should say. And I think by the time they get to the point of purchase, they're much more informed technically about price, about what's available out there, using big data and the internet. So if you take what I've seen, and I use this on a fairly regular basis now, if you see or take our experiences as B2C customers, using the likes of Amazon, Tesco, driving price down through Lidl and the supermarkets, etc., and we want next day service, we want same day delivery in many cases. That is now filtering its way through into B2B mentality, in my opinion. And if we look at over the last 2 or 3 years, some of the businesses I've worked with and some of the businesses I've been involved in, that expectation of a supplier, whether it's product or service, whether it's a request for information or an RFQ, they want that information instantaneously, because pretty much it's out there on the web. So I see B2C influencing B2B even more, and we're now starting to see that come full circle through marketing, customer service, and there's some well-written documents over the last 12, 18 months, which is sort of leading us that sort of way as well. And it's our own personal experience. We experience these things on a day-to-day basis. Why shouldn't we accept it, or expect it, I should say, in our business world? The challenge is, if your business is not up to working or leading in that fashion, there's a fair chance you'll get left behind.
Thank you, Nick. You really shared some really interesting thoughts with us today, and some tips in there as well, which I've engaged with. If people want to touch base with you, want to engage with you, how should they contact you?
The easiest way, or 2 ways, is either find me on LinkedIn, Nick Hughes, a Dynamic Coach, or via the website, which is dynamiccoach.co.uk.
Super. Excellent. Thank you. And thank you again, Nick, for your time this morning, and thank you for sharing some of your thoughts with us.
Thanks, Mike. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
So please do subscribe to my YouTube channel and get notified next time I publish a Zoom with interview. And the next interview will be with whoever's next.